when Mexico joined NAFTA. The country wanted to modernize, but just what would come after? Insurgent rebels took the South, the presidential candidate was killed. Investors pulled their money out and a crisis ensued. And the expats, the Yanks with their backpacks, yeah, it was quite a thrill. Opportunity to make a buck or two. Perhaps it could help out, they thought they could, no doubt. Oh man, wasn't it cool? And I was down there too, fresh out of school. Yeah.
Testing. This is Samuel del Villar speaking. It is now May 27th, 1991, and the semester is coming to an end. This has been a wild one, so I thought I should get my ideas down on tape, should I someday wish to include them in my memoirs. In my many years teaching constitutional law at the Colmex, I don't think I've encountered a situation quite as bizarre as the one that I just went through. You see, this year the Americans arrived. The Colegio de México is one of the finest institutions of higher learning in the country. Though we are primarily a research institute for postgraduate studies in the social sciences, we do have a small undergraduate program. This is attended by a select group of students that will become the future leaders of the country. Apparently, we also have a formal exchange program with Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, in the United States. This year, 2 students arrived from Brown to join the undergraduate program in international relations. The first is Joshua Cohen, who seems to be a relatively serious student. The second is named Kaleil Isaza Tuzman, who is truly a curious piece of work. The 2 of them, and some drifter from the state of Michigan named Paul Stone, are renting an apartment in the south of the city near the Copilco metro stop. From what I came to gather, Kaleil ostensibly had multiple ethnic backgrounds and would take on the particular cultural identity that best suited his rhetorical needs at the moment. Josh and Kaleil were in the same Spanish persuasive argument class at Brown. The son of a Colombian immigrant, Kaleil would shut down all discussions there by claiming that only he as a Latino could understand issues related to Latin America. Prior to their arrival in Mexico, Kaleil explained to Josh that it was considered a privilege to attend college in Latin America, and therefore they would need to dress appropriately. While most of the undergraduate students here wear t-shirts and other informal attire, of course the 2 gringos showed up in slacks, dress shirts, and ties. It looked like a couple of representatives of the CIA had arrived at the Colmex. It was quite the spectacle. Of course, this was just the first of Kaleil's many cultural faux pas. Kaleil was an avid bodybuilder and allowed nothing to get in the way of his muscular progress. The Mexican students at the Colmex were of course confused as to why he would bring his weight gain shakes to class every morning, even though eating and drinking was frowned upon. Perhaps had Kaleil gone out partying with Josh and the rest of his classmates during the semester, rather than spending every free minute lifting weights at the gym, he might have assimilated a bit more. This inability to blend in came to a head in my Mexican constitutional law class. Allow me to explain. I take pleasure in dragging on a cigarette throughout my lectures. It helps me focus. When I see that my cigarette is getting low, I simply drop it to the floor and allow it to extinguish itself as I get the next one ready. I understand that perhaps this is not the norm in the university system in the United States, but here in Mexico, nearly half of my students seem to enjoy this freedom. I came to learn, however, that Mr. Kaleil Isaza Tuzman was not so pleased with our Mexican norms. One day, prior to my arrival, Kaleil summoned his American chutzpah and decided to organize a vote so the majority might determine whether or not smoking would be allowed in class. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a strong proponent of democracy and the rule of law. Indeed, the highly irregular conduct of the 1988 elections that brought Carlos Salinas to the presidency so offended my sense of justice that I was compelled to quit the ruling party to become one of the co-founders of the PRD opposition party. I'll be the first to admit that I generally deliver my lectures in a rather calm and measured way. However, the day following Kaleil's vote, I marched into the classroom and gave a rousing speech for the decades. I proclaimed that although Mexico is a democracy with all the rights and blessings that its constitution grants us, in my class I am the supreme leader, and I call the shots. And I declare that we will indeed allow smoking. With that, I lit up a butt, took a long drag, and exhaled my freedom into the classroom. After the incident, Kaleil decided that it was in his best interest to drop my class. I later overheard one of my students confiding to Josh, the other American, that Kaleil was, in fact, the most gringo person he had ever met in his life. A few years after the incident, I went on to become the Federal District Attorney General when the PRD won the Mexico City elections of 1997. I made my mark by fighting corruption in the city police force. Sadly, in the year 2005, I was taken to the ABC hospital with pulmonary and renal issues. I died a week later from a stroke at home. I am celebrated to this day for my dedication to the rule of law. Meanwhile, ever concerned about his image, upon his return to the States, Kaleil Isaza Tuzman would transfer from Brown University to Harvard because he believed the degree would just look better. In 1998, he went on to found the internet business GovWorks, raising millions before running it into the ground. Portrayed in the movie Startup.com, Kaleil is shown as the epitome of hubris and greed during the dot-com bubble. In 2015, Kaleil was charged with financial fraud in another of his ventures. He was thrown in jail while on business in Colombia and extradited back to the United States. Though convicted in 2017, sentencing did not occur until 2021, at which point a federal judge decided not to give him jail time due to all the trauma he had already been through. Of course, during the long period awaiting sentencing on his fraud case, Kaleil had undertaken yet another luxury hotel development project in Colombia. This one also went south, and he ended up being sued by his investors who accused him of stealing $5.4 million. As of 2024, the case is still in the court system.
Them are the cops. I've had so many run-ins with the cops. I was here as a student. One day I was outside on the phone. I was talking on the phone, walking back and forth, a little nervous. A cop comes up to me. He says, "Excuse me, son, is everything all right?" So I said, "Yeah, thanks, officer." I kept talking. Then I turn around and I see the car and the lights are going and his buddy's getting out of the car, and now this guy comes up and then there are two of the guys up there and they're like, "Son, you were pulling on the cord. Yeah, you were doing damage to a public phone. Get in the car, son." So I got in the car. Sure, I got in the car. What do you do? So I said, "Well, what are you taking me for?" And they're, "We're bringing you in as a suspect." A suspect? A suspect of what? A suspect of doing damage to a public phone. So they drive you around, and of course it's your first experience with the cops. You're like, I'm a law-abiding citizen in my country, and I respect the Mexican laws, and I'm just here as a student, and I wouldn't want to do anything to disturb Mexican law and tranquility. That doesn't fly. Then they got you right in their hand. So they're telling me that they're gonna take me downtown, and they're gonna have to take me in for 24 hours of interrogation. And after the 24 hours of interrogation, I'm going to have to pay a fine equal to somewhere in the range of 10 minimum salaries. Well, what could I say? I'm sorry, but they want some money. You see, that's how it works. The cops are looking for bribes. See, you bribe a cop, then the money goes up, and then he gives his officers some money, and it filters its way up right to the top. Everyone's getting their cut. I didn't realize that's how they were playing. And then they're saying, well, you know, we can fix this here, son. I'm like, excuse me? We can fix this here. I'm like, excuse me? We can fix this here. How much money do you have? Well, at that point, they've solicited the bribe pretty clear to me. I mean, I don't have to come out and say I wasn't about to initiate a bribe. So, I gave them what I had, which at the time was like 17 bucks, 20 bucks, and then let me go. Yes, then there was the other time as a student, this like Ram Charger thing pulls up, and like 5 guys get out. And they're on me, and they're frisking me, and they're like, alright, let's see, son, where you going, son? And then they pull out my wallet, let's see your what do you got in there? And it's obviously my wallet. So then they want, let's see it. And then they're looking through it to check it out, and then they're like, smelling my fingers. And at that point, see, I knew that this was all a game, so I was like, excuse me, officer, I just brushed my teeth so my hands smell like toothpaste. I told him, I said, look, I'm here as a student, I have no money on me, so what can I do? I gave them my credentials, my ID, and they said, okay, Mr. Cohen, get going, son, get going. So I got going. Then there was a time that me and my friend, roommate, Steve Postek, were walking down the street, and from a distance I saw a cop car, and I told him, if we keep walking, they're going to stop us. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, they're going to stop us. So we kept walking, and then sure enough, they pull up next to us, and they say, go, we have some identification, and they stop the car. The door flies open, and a puff of marijuana smoke comes out at me, and I'm like, whoa. And these 2 guys came out, and they were roasted. They were out of looking in all directions. They couldn't focus, and they were like, who are you? Can we see some identification? And we gave them our ID, our wallets, and they were looking through it. We were both carrying lots of cash, probably like 30 bucks each. And they didn't care about the cash. They were just looking all the hidden compartments, looking for more marijuana. I can tell you, I don't want to have a car down here. My roommate Steve has a car, and he just went to the States for Christmas and left me his car, and he said, use it. So I got all excited. I figured, maybe I'll go to Sam's Club and see what's on sale. So I jump in the car, and I forgot that that was the day the car does not circulate. You see, there's a program here to fight the smog that one day out of the week your car can't circulate. So I was driving, and I didn't realize, and this cop comes behind me, and the lights start going, and then they pull out their speaker, and they're like, and you know what they're saying, but you figure it's there's a guy behind you, the lights are going, it means you. So you pull over, and the guy comes out, and he's like, I know, and they go into these heroic speeches, that you have foreign plates on your car and probably are not aware of what the local rules are, but Mexico is an autonomous country with its own laws and procedures, and therefore you should not be circulating on this day. You know, we're going to have to impound your car for 48 hours, and you'll have to pay the equivalent of 10 minimum salaries, which comes out to be 490 pesos, which at the time was about 130 bucks or whatever. And what do I think about that? Well, what do I think about it? It's pretty bad, but what can I do? I've already committed the crime. And he said, well, you know, I could take you home, escort you back to your house, and you could thank me with a little something. And I said, well, sir, I'd love to thank you with something, but I have no cash on me. Do you want some gasoline coupons? And the guy's like, gasoline coupons? No gas coupons. Come on, you can thank me better than that. I said, look, I have no money. If you want, we could go to a Bancomer, that's my bank, and I could take out some money to thank you with. And he said, well, let's see, where's there a Bancomer around there? I couldn't believe it. The cop is looking for his bribe money. He's trying to think where we can get it from. So he gets in his car, the lights are going, I get in my car, and I'm following him, and he escorts me back to the bank. We get to the bank, and he pulls over to the side, turns off his lights, and then I have to go in the bank and make a withdrawal. He never specified the amount of the bribe, so I took out 50 pesos, which at the time was like 17 bucks. It's currently like 10 because it's devaluation. And we go home. I park the car, he comes out and I slip him the cash and he says, well, what's this? This is it? I said, look, it seems reasonable for what this is. And he's like, well, okay, son, but just don't let it happen again. It was dumb. All my friends said, if that ever happens again, just say, okay, let's go downtown and interrogate me.